It's wonderful to be here. I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm here from the UK, so you might hear my accent, and it's evening time for me. So wherever you are in the world tuning in, whatever your accent, whatever your cultural identity, whatever time zone and time of day or night it is for you, it's so lovely to see you all, and you're so welcome to join me for this conversation about being a change maker in our sphere of influence, whether that's in our businesses, whether that's in our communities, our families, or inside the organizations that we're part of or that we lead and run. And I'm really passionate about women globally stepping up, using our voice, using our privilege, and extending our leadership, but doing that in a way that centers our well-being and our joy so that we don't kind of fry ourselves and burn out in the process. So that's what I'm really passionate about and love, and happy to share more about that with you today. So you're in the right place with us this morning, this evening, wherever you are in your time zone, to start exploring what it means to be a change maker for you. It will be really unique and different from each other person listening in. It'll be unique for you. And if you're curious about, well, what might that stepping up without burning out look and feel like for me? And I want to share some power practices with you, which are things that you can put into your toolkit, put into your pocket, if you like, small practices that are not a massive thing to add to your to-do list, but a small way to build a new habit that will help you to center your well-being and your joy and feel really good in your day-to-day life. So I want to share a couple of those with you in the time that we have here as well today. I'd love to start by checking in with your energy. So imagine that you are a battery, if you'll go with me on that analogy, and how much percentage are you topped up right now? It might depend on what time of day it is that you're listening into this. Are you like 95, 100% topped up? Are you a little bit more drained, or are you really quite low in your battery? If you were to give me a percentage right now, where would you be? Maybe just jot that down, take a note, and you might want a pen and paper handy as we go through this session. Hopefully there'll be things in my story that I'll share in a moment, and in some of the practical things that I share with you in the session that you're going to find really useful to take away. So even in that percentage battery that we've just done there, notice that your energy probably will ebb and flow, even in this session as you're listening in, even throughout your day. I'm sure your battery will change at different times of the day. And as women, we know that we cycle monthly, whether or not we're still at a stage of our lives where we're bleeding and menstruating. We are going through a monthly cycle. We're tuned into that. And we therefore have ebbs and flows in our energy. It's something we all know intuitively, isn't it? But the more that we can tune in to our body data around that, the more actually we can enable ourselves to stay sustainable. We can check when we're getting low and what is it that we need to have a little pep. We can check if we are feeling really high in our energy, and therefore what do we want to do with that best use of that energy. An example for me would be it's later in the day for me, joining you in this session, and I know that for me to be present with you now and to be really giving of my best in this time, which is my desire, then I need to have my energy topped up. So I actually just had a little sleep. I'm going to confess, I just had a little nap on the other side of the room over there, a little rest. And I've drunk loads of water. I've had a bit of cereal. I've kind of woken my body up. And I also did a little run up and down some steps just to get my heart rate up and get myself feeling really topped up and really good so that I could be with you now. That all the sleep took about 20 minutes, but the rest of that just took about 5 minutes just to top up my energy again. So that's a way that I use this battery checker. So I wanted to offer that to you even as we start our conversation. So this is a little bit more about me, and I'll share a bit of my story with you. Thanks, Lisa, for the introduction. Katy Murray, and you might know me if you're online and you like to play on Instagram or LinkedIn, you can find me there, and I'm often known as Katy Catalyst. That's been my business name for lots of years now, that idea of a catalyst being something that enables change for other people. And for myself too. So I'll say a bit more about my identity. I'm a daughter. I'm a friend, I'm a mum, I have 2 teenagers, I'm raising 2 girls. I've been married for 23 years. I'm married to a Scot. I live in England and he's from Scotland, so we have a bit of a multicultural partnership there. And then some other parts of who I am. I'm a white woman, I'm cisgendered, I'm heterosexual, I'm able-bodied, I think I'm probably perimenopausal in terms of where I'm at physically in that stage of life. So little bits about those kind of intersections of my identity there. And as we talk about our identity, it can sometimes create some discomfort, can't it? Or some, yeah, just it can create a reaction from others when we share those parts of ourselves. And also I'm sharing with you those points of privilege that I hold. So as an able-bodied woman, I'm not having to think day by day, how am I going to get around and access my local shops or walk down to town? I don't have to think about that. That's part of my privilege. As a white woman, I don't experience racism as I navigate the world day by day. So I wanted to start with sort of stating some of those identity pieces. And again, when you're listening in, maybe you can think about, well, what is it that you bring when you introduce yourself to a group, when you step into a new space as part of your leadership? I think you're all leaders, right? In whatever context you are in right now, how do you show up? And some of those things will be visible. So you'll see some things about me, even just from this little square on the screen and on the recording, that you'll make maybe some judgments, and you'll have some stories in your brain about who I am. And if I was meeting you, my brain would be doing that as well. So some of the things are visible and they give people that information. That may be a wrong assumption that people are making about us. And some of those things are invisible, and it's what we choose to share, isn't it? What we choose to say, or what we choose to reveal about how we show up with others. So I wanted to share just a little bit of that with you. And I've mentioned that I'm really passionate about supporting women leaders to navigate the world. So some of those biases and barriers that we've just touched on there, some of the ways that our identity mean that we do experience some of those barriers that the world creates, and how do we as women navigate those systems and even dismantle them so that others can have a better experience in the workplace, for example, or in our communities. How do we use our privilege and our voice to do that? So I'm really passionate about that. And I'm passionate about women, talented, purpose-driven, incredible women, finding ways to make all of this sustainable, because so often we're holding so many other things, aren't we? We're juggling so many other aspects of our life, all those parts of our role, being a daughter, being a friend, being a mum, being a partner, those parts of my role, it's part of my identity. It's not all of who I am, but I have expectations and responsibilities in all those areas. And we know that women tend to carry more of the mental load and more of the emotional load, particularly if you have caring responsibilities. So in all of that, how do we give of our best, and how do we enjoy our life and do that in a way that that sustains our own well-being, that helps us to be healthy and well? And of course, we're navigating global turmoil. As I mentioned, I'm here in the UK. You may have seen in the news, there's all kinds of turmoil going on here that we have no control over as individual citizens. And wherever you're dialing in from, I'm sure you can relate to that within your own culture and society, and the country that you're based in, the part of the US you're in, or the part of other parts of the world that you're in, that there's so much uncertainty, isn't there, that we're navigating, and we're trying to do that together, but it also impacts our lives as individuals. So that's what I'm passionate about. A few things there about me, which perhaps are more the sort of professional spaces, some of which Lisa's already mentioned. I'll talk a bit more about my book through the session. I'm a leadership coach. We've talked about that already. And we've talked about what I'm passionate about in the world. Here are some pictures just to bring some of that to life, some of the women that I love to be alongside, some of the writing that I've done over the last year, some of the publications that I've been really pleased to be part of. The book being published was a really fantastic highlight for me. And I also want to say that when we see other women have those moments like the mountain peaks, I know now that there's so many small, consistent, persistent steps that have enabled her to get to that peak point. And often we're socialized to compare and despair, aren't we? So we look at someone else's life and it's like, oh my goodness, I don't have that. And we get into that lack mentality. But actually, I know now from my own experience, but also being alongside so many other women in their ups and downs, that there's so much behind the scenes that we don't see or don't know. And so I want to share with you that although the book moment for me has been really fantastic, and it's been a massive win, and it's felt like huge progress, and I've been so proud of that accomplishment, it's come off the back of years and years and years and years of small steps. It's been like a big build. So I want to encourage you that if you are starting a thing, or if you are in the midst of a thing that just feels like a slog and feels hard and feels like a long way from where you want it to be or where you dream for it to be, that I just want to encourage you to keep going and find ways to support yourself. Course correct if you need to, but who do you need around you to really be cheerleading you and supporting you to keep going, and know that it's going to be a journey of lots of persistent small steps. So I wanted to share that, and I hope that's an encouragement to you wherever you find yourself to be in your change making too. Some of these questions I already asked, but you might want to use this little image on the left-hand side. It's drawn by my friend Sakina Saidi, who I collaborated with to create this image, which talks about intersectionality. So there's different parts of our identity and how they interconnect, and what that then means for us in terms of how we experience the world day by day, and how we choose to show up as leaders, as mothers, as friends, as daughters, in all those roles that we have. And I'm curious for you to think about, what do you lead with? Like, where do you start when you introduce yourself? What part of your identity do you kind of put front and center? Some of that might be the visible stuff or the invisible stuff, like I already mentioned. Are there any areas here that you notice, even as you're looking now at that picture, that image, that you want to censor or hide or hold back? And those are not areas that you feel comfortable sharing, perhaps in your workplace or perhaps with colleagues in your area where you live or where you're involved in your community. Are those things that perhaps take a little bit more trust? You need to feel really safe to share that. Just a noticing point there for you. And I'm also just showing, for me, I just want to say all of you is welcome. That worth and validity that you have, your humanity, all of who you are, all those beautiful intersectional elements of your personhood is worthy and valuable and valid, and may not always be valued externally. And when we connect with who we are deep down in our humanity, there's so much value and worth there, and that compassion that we can have for ourselves. Okay, so a question: what does it mean then for you to be a change maker? What do I mean by that? And for me, that's about you finding your voice and finding the contribution that you want to make, and whatever your sphere of influence. I've already mentioned you might be leading inside an organization or leading your own business. You might be leading your family. You might be leading in your peer group. And I would see all of you as leaders with that potential to speak up about those things that you care about, that you're passionate about, and to make a difference or even in a small way. We know, if we think about the climate crisis, for example, we know that needs to be a collective response. We all need to be doing small things, as well as there being big systemic change as well. But we can't all take on all of that, right? We can just choose the things that we can focus on. So that's my challenge to you now, is to think about, well, where's my area of focus? Where's my contribution? And being a change maker may not be a label or a title that you've considered for yourself before, but just maybe try it on for a moment and see how it feels to have that descriptor and that label, and what does it bring even into your body right now. If I'm just kind of touching my heart center with my hands, like, oh, what happens when I take on that label of change maker? If I just for a moment suspend my disbelief and take on, yeah, that's me, I can do that. What happens? Can you kind of stretch a little bit taller and feel that power in you to make a difference? Again, wherever that will be for you, it will be different to everybody else listening in. And I wanted to share an analogy or a metaphor with you around, which is the wall. And this is based on some work by a feminist marketer called Kelly Deals. And she, and I've adapted it a bit here, but it's this concept of, we can think about the biases and the barriers that I mentioned already that we're navigating as women in the world. So we can think about the patriarchy, we can think about sexism, I've mentioned already, ableism, I've mentioned already, racism, we can think about homophobia, we can think about all those aspects of that intersectional identity that actually society creates a barrier. You can think about all of that interconnecting and becoming a wall, like each of these are a brick in the wall. And this wall can feel really overwhelming, heavy, big. We may have experienced toxic workplaces. We may have experienced overt discrimination. We may have experienced daily microaggressions inside organizations or, again, in our communities. We may have experienced direct oppression or abuse from these kinds of societal aspects. It can be really big and really heavy, and the impact is real and can be traumatic. And I know there's other sessions in this brilliant conference where you can connect on particular issues there and kind of go deeper into each of those pieces. If we think about that kind of overview of here's the wall and we're all standing at it, and we all have different experiences as we are ourselves in our own different bodies, in our own different identities at this time of history, different legacy, different things that we're bringing with us. And the idea that I absolutely love, and I wanted to share this part with you, is we can imagine taking a little pickaxe. And I've got a pencil, I haven't got a pickaxe, so I've got a pencil with me, but you can imagine picking up a little tool, and you're standing at your place in the wall and you start to pick away. And I can feel at times really alone and really, oh my goodness, all I've got is this tiny little pickaxe, this massive wall, which is really overwhelming and heavy and huge. And how am I going to get over this or get through it? But as I pick away at my part of the wall, I can look to the left and look to the right, and I can look up and look down and look around me, and I can see you and 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 all these other incredible people who are also standing on the wall with their pickaxe picking away. And the brilliant thing about that for me is that I feel less alone. And I also know that my part in the wall is really different to yours and yours. And we need one another. We all need to be at the wall picking away and doing our part. And it's why it's so brilliant to be part of an event like this, because we don't need to compare with one another. We don't need to be in each other's spaces. We can all be with our own voice and with our own story and with our own work to do. There's enough work to do, and there's an abundance of capacity, and we can all be in that place of doing our part. We don't need to compare or need to be like somebody else. We don't need to disqualify ourselves or even particularly big ourselves up. We can just be part of that process together. So there's that question. How does that land for you? What resonates? What's your position at the wall? Do you know already? Is it really clear for you? Yeah, this is my piece. This is the bit that I'm going to be kind of picking away at. And I forgot to say, by the way, that when all of us are chipping away, this wall is going to come down. Like, that's the arc of history. The arc of history bends towards justice. We just need to be part of bending it, right? Like, we need to be part of that process, and it may take a lot of time, but that doesn't mean, it's going to take time, we'll all just sit back. No. It's going to take time when we all are leaning in. So that's the kind of facing into it. And the wall is going to come down. The wall is going to come down. So I want to share now some questions. If you are in a place of like, Katy, I don't know that I know where I don't know if I even see the wall. That's new for me. So I want to learn more about that. Like, what are these bricks and how do they interconnect? And that's a point of privilege for you. If you're not experiencing yet what this wall is, then just notice that now. And it's not a point of judgment or shame or blame for you. It's just noticing that that's a space of privilege for you if you haven't experienced these biases and barriers. And how are you going to use that privilege? So there's a real superpower that you can now bring into play. So you may be just beginning to see the wall, or you may not quite know yet what your place at it is. And so these next questions are for you if that's where you feel yourself and find yourself to be. And it's about connecting with your emotions and your body data. So I'd like you to think about when you watch the news or click on particular news items, listen to podcasts, connect with what's going on in the wider world. Of course, we're all in our little echo chambers, aren't we? So it's really good to break out of those and listen to different voices and have a range of spaces to give us our news and our input and our information. When you see what's going on in your workplace, perhaps when you see what's going on in your wider community, and you've got the glasses on, you're starting to see what's happening and really notice and the impact on people. What is it? And planet, by the way, people and planet. What are you most angry about? Like, what really kind of gets you going? Where's that sort of righteous anger, that kind of desire for justice that's in each of us? What is that really active? Where is that really activated for you? And that can give you a clue I then want to ask you what makes you jealous, which is not always an emotion we talk about a lot as women. Again, we're socialized that a lot of these emotions are a little bit negative and we should kind of push them to one side or minimize them in some way. They're a bit ugly in some way. I think jealousy is one of the most incredibly powerful and useful emotions to unpack as women. When you feel envious of somebody else, when your jealousy is peaked, when your comparison is peaked, here's a little tip. You can go into that and it's really uncomfortable, right? It feels ouch, really ouchy, but you can go into that and what is it about that person? What is it about their life, the way they're speaking, the way they're being with somebody else, the kindness they're showing, or the characteristics you're seeing in them, or something that they're doing? What is it about their life or their personhood that really speaks to me? What is it actually that I'm kind of wanting more of? And it becomes a mirror into your own heart and the desires of your heart. What is it that you actually really long for and really want for yourself? And by the way, sometimes when I do that, if my comparison is spiked and I'm like, oh, I wish I was flying off to that beach location to, whatever. And if I really interrogate that, like, do I really want that? I'm like, well, no, I really don't actually. I really love my life. I love my kids. I love living where I live. And I don't want to be flying around the world anymore because I've done enough of that and it's not good for the planet. So I'm going to stop doing. So I kind of interrogate it. I don't really want it. So what is it I actually want? And when I go deeper, what really appeals to me about that is the flexibility, the freedom, the variety, the sense of fun and adventure. It's like, oh, that's what's really for me. And then I can go to, oh, well, how can I create more of that in my life? Now, we've diverted a little bit away from the wall, but I just wanted to share that piece with you about how we can use our jealousy to give us so much useful insight and data as to what's actually in our own hearts. So what gives you joy is the next one. And that's a bit that energy battery that we did at the beginning of the session. When you're really topped up and energized, when you're feeling that sense of flow and joy and you're kind of loving what it is you're involved in or who it is you're with, or again, there are clues here as to what your change-making contribution can be. Really, really lean in, like move into the places that give you joy. That's where we come alive. That's where we bring our best. That's where we bring our best thinking, our best energy, our creativity, etc. And it's a counter. What's the word? It counteracts and can sustain us even when things are tough. It may be that your work doesn't give you a lot of joy right now. It may be that the financial situation currently doesn't give you a lot of joy right now. All the things that are tough in the world that we're navigating. It's not about gaslighting that or being in denial around that, pretending that stuff's not real. But it might be about finding those little micro moments of joy in the day that you kind of squeeze those moments to get the goodness out of them. What are you most curious about? What have you always wanted to learn more about? What parts of the world and humanity are you curious about? So all these questions just kind of help you see, well, where might my contribution be? Hope those are helpful for you as you consider that. So let's move on to think about, what does it mean for you to stay sustainable at the wall? And what I mean by that is I work with lots of women who are activists or women who are leading in social enterprise or leading in business and really wanting to make a difference through their work. And of course, it's also about that sustainability piece. This work can be really complex and messy and hard and lonely at times. So how do we actually keep ourselves going, and how do we center our own well-being? I've met too many people, all genders, not just women. I've met too many who have kind of allowed the cause that they're passionate about to be more important than actually their own health, their own mental health, their own physical well-being. And I want to really counteract that and say I don't think that's, I think we can live differently to that. I think we can do something different to that. We can value one another. Oh, and also, by the way, have fried their teams, right? Fried other people in that process. And we're doing this great thing out there, but the way that we're treating each other really isn't great inside. I've worked with lots of organizations like that, sadly. Something about disconnect between the walk and the talk. I think we can do it differently. I think we can lead and manage and live inclusively and kindly and in a way that centers our well-being, and also, make a difference in the work that we're doing. A little bit more about what's in the book, just as a bit of an aside, but just to say more about this flow between like the inner work and the outer work. So the inner work there that I just mentioned is all about how do I sustain myself in this process? Like, how do I care for myself? Um, Chapter 3 in the book is all about mapping your own resilience and those things that you need to keep your energy battery topped up. And I go into a lot more depth about that. If you can if you would like to, and scan that QR code, you can get into all the bonuses actually, which are some audios that I narrate, and all the affirmations from the book are there for you, and a guided visualization. If you're into all of that kind of stuff, they're all there as bonuses, because I couldn't put my voice into the book. It's all words. So you can read it or you can hear my voice if you want those bonuses. It's that piece about resilience and well-being, how we speak to ourselves, our inner dialogue, how we allow our thoughts to affect how we feel and how we then show up. So lots in chapter 1 and 2, all about that. And then, as I mentioned, your privilege, your voice, how you step up and amplify others is all there in chapter 6 and 7. It's about how we extend our ecosystem of relationships, all those connections that we have with other women. What does it look like to cheerlead and collaborate rather than compete and compare? And that is really hard to do in practice, because we are not taught how to do that. Certainly in my culture in Britain, that's not in our school system. It's not in our community system. So we have to learn that. We have to really desire it and learn how to do it well. Power practices I'll talk about in a minute, and then there are some interviews all the way through of women that are living in this way to give you that inspiration. I just wanted to just say a little bit more about that, and then share with you a bit more just in the next few moments on these things I've mentioned called power practices, so we could just do a couple together. I've mentioned this thriving visualization. So again, with that bonus, you can hear my voice leading you through it. It's like a meditation. Basically, you're allowing your mind to just go quiet, allow your body to go quiet, and then really picturing yourself thriving in the future. And it's incredibly powerful. There's nothing kind of weird or wonderful going on. It literally is just your brain giving you some creative data. And then when you see that picture of yourself in the future, it's like, wow, okay, that's who I can be. It kind of stretches your sense of potential. And then these other practices are going to help you to get there. So if you'd like to dive more into that, I really recommend it. It's a really powerful practice to get into. Intention setting is all about how I'm going to show up every day. So if that's where I want to be in like 3 months, 6 months time, how am I going to show up today and tomorrow and the next day? And I'm going to come off track loads and I'm going to mess up, and I'm human and all the things. But how can I come back to that intentional being and feeling that I want to experience in order to create more of the life that I want to create and be making the contribution that I want to be making? So those are all in there for you. Let's do one of these together now then, in the time that we have. So if you have pen and paper handy, and we're going to set our intentions for the rest of the day. If you're early morning listening to this, you've got your day ahead of you. If it's midday or later on in the day, you could think about tomorrow if you want to, or the rest of the day. So whatever works for you. Here are the 3 questions. The first one is, how do I want to feel? So we're priming our brain to actually feel more of how we want to feel in the day. So do I want to feel more joy? Do I want to feel more calm? Do I want to feel more fun and adventure? Like, what are the emotions? What are the experiences, the feelings that I want to experience today? Even if my day is chock-a-block with meetings or packed, or if I'm dealing with some really difficult stuff personally in my home life, whatever it is, even if I'm navigating all of that, I can still have some influence over how I'm going to feel. I will respond and feel all kinds of stuff in response to external provocations or events, but I also can own and have agency around my choice of how I want to feel in that really more grounded place. So this is what we're doing with that first question. How do I want to feel? So just take a note now. How do I want to feel the rest of the day? Second question is, how do I want to show up? So that's, how do I want to be with the people around me, my family, my friends, my clients, my colleagues, my team, my boss, the people that I line manage, the stakeholders, your customers, whoever it is you're linking with and connecting with today. How do you want to be with them? Do you want to be kind? Do you want to be compelling and clear? Do you want to be dynamic? Do you want to be whatever? You fill in the blanks there for yourself. How do I want to show up? Again, it's about setting that intention. You're much more likely to actually be and do that and live and behave the way that you really want to be doing, and you can line that up with your visualization. There's where I want to be in the future. So how am I going to be today to be more like that person, that woman that I see in the future? We're much more likely to be and do that when we've kind of aligned our brains and set that intention that I want to do that. And every day I mess up and I'm not always the person that I want to be. I regularly set the intention to be patient, and I'm regularly very, very impatient. And this is a work in progress, isn't it? There's grace for ourselves in this. I know that by setting my intentions, I'm more likely to get closer to that. Okay, so that's the second question. And then the third question, one thing I want to progress today. And notice that the question is not one thing I want to complete, or the question is not the 100 things I've got on my to-do list today. So this is not about your to-do list, which I'm sure is full. We can all be busy. Being busy is not difficult for any of us. This is about the small thing, maybe one tiny thing that's actually the really important thing that's going to help you move towards your goals. So not finish your big goal, but move towards it. So if there's something that you're passionate about that you want to make a difference on, what's one thing today that you can do to move a little bit more towards that? I'll give an example. So one of my clients is really passionate about pay gaps, the gender pay gap, the ethnicity pay gap, and people that are not being paid fairly for their work. And she's really passionate about flexible working, that parents, but also others with caring responsibilities, can get to be with their families and be with the people they need to be with, and also get their work done. And she's trying to just really challenge this culture of like 9 to 5 or presenteeism, which is so prevalent in our organizations. So the small, so she's like, oh, it's a massive goal. What am I going to, that's my part of the wall. That's where I'm chipping away. But what does it look like today? And we talked about that, and we got it down really, really small. It's like, what's the first step? Like, what's the first conversation? What's the first bit of research? What's the first click of downloading some data, some reports? What's the first reach out to your senior team to have a conversation about this? What's the first reaching out to a colleague to ask for their experiences? So what are the small things that you can start to do? It might just be sending an email today, and then tomorrow it will be one other small thing. I hope that helps giving you an example. So that's for you now. One thing I want to feel. How do I want to feel today? How do I want to show up? One thing I want to progress today. And that's your intention setting exercise, power practice. Okay, there's plenty more in the book that you can dive into and enjoy. And one of the things that I've done at the end of each chapter is put a series of affirmations at the end. And in the bonuses, you can hear my voice talking through the affirmations. You can also, if you want to, record your own voice. That can be really powerful, hearing your own voice saying these amazing affirming words about yourself. So I thought we could do something a little bit cheeky here and pick one of these. And no one's listening to you. Pick one and we can say them out loud together. So whenever you're listening to this, you can be part of this beautiful collective of women speaking out these affirmations. And an affirmation is just a statement of belief about who I am, about the possibilities of who I am. I may not 100% believe it yet, but I'm shifting and changing my own neural pathways to start to believe this more and more. So have a look at the ones on the page, on the slide. I'm creating, I actually can't read that. I'll come back to that one. I can shape my own life. I choose to feel, I choose to be, I choose to progress. That was that intention setting. I am enough. Our society is constantly telling us that we're not enough, that we're not good enough, thin enough, pretty enough, old enough, young enough, clever enough, all the things. We're not enough, right? And then here you go, we'll sell you something to help you feel more enough. So that's how consumerism is part of the wall and plays into the patriarchy. So that affirmation, I am enough, so powerful. I do enough. What I accomplished today is enough. Our society tells us that there's all that toxic productivity, isn't there? We have to be always on. We always should be doing more. So this affirmation really grounds us and centers us on that simplicity of what I accomplished today is enough. I have all that I need to take me to the next step. I can make a difference for those around me. I am a change maker. There's a gift for me in this time, really beautiful one. If you're going through a difficult time, if you're going through tricky circumstances, this is not glib and flippant. This is a really deep one. There's a gift. Where's the gift for me in this time? We can do this. We're in this together. Together we rise. That's a beautiful affirmation about our collective, our sisterhood, our willingness and ability to reach out across the divides, the things that would hold us apart, and reaching out and finding those commonalities and ways that we can be together. I let go of the old. I'm embracing the new. Lovely transition affirmation. I tune into my body. I trust my body. If we've been through, any kind of health changes or any kind of mental health or any trauma, these are learning to trust ourselves again, learning to trust that inner wisdom. I'm proud of the woman that I am becoming. So pick one, and I'm going to count to 3, and I thought we could just all say it out loud and there'll be a silence. We know that there'll be lots of other women saying a statement, so choose one. And after you've done this, I recommend that you take and put it on a post-it note, stick it next to your bed, see it and say it first thing in the morning, put it next to your laptop or your workstation or inside your diary or on your phone or wherever you're likely to look, near your kid's bed or wherever you want to put it, where you're going to see it and say it out loud. And that's how we start to shift and shape the neural pathways in our brain, and these things start to be more believable for us. So pick one, 1, 2, 3, say it out loud, go. Beautiful affirmations. Gorgeous. Hope you enjoyed that. Okay, last question that I'll leave you with, and then I'll hand back to Lisa. And that's about, where are you getting your support and accountability? So as you step up in your leadership, as you discover your place at the wall, as you chip away, and as you look to keep yourself sustainable and center your well-being despite what's going on around you, where do you find that space for support and accountability? Where do you receive that from other women and also give that to other women, that beautiful reciprocity that we can generate? I don't think it's immediately found. I think we have to work at it because of what I shared earlier. We have to unlearn so much of what the patriarchy's taught us about being in scarcity and therefore being in competition with one another, or actually being separated with all of the isms and barriers and parts of the wall that I've mentioned. We have to work hard to break down those barriers and move towards one another. But when we find that level of support and accountability, it is magic, it's beautiful, and it allows so much else to flow in our lives. So I just wanted to leave you with that challenge to seek and reach out and find that. And it may be through this conference, it may be through other ways that you can do that. Do reach out to people that you've met and connected with through this event, to Lisa, to myself, to others I'm sure that you've connected with, who, just to build that sense of solidarity and connection. It's so important for all of us. Okay, as I close, I'd love you to think and maybe take a note for yourself. We've covered a lot of ground, and I know that I've spoken fast. Thank you so much for all your attentiveness and energy being present with me. I wonder, what is your biggest insight or takeaway from a bit of my story that I've shared and what I shared with you today? And I wonder what's resonated, what's landed for you, kind of head and heart, what your takeaway might be. And as we close, I wonder if you just want to check in with your battery again, like, where's your energy now? And just again, notice. And that's part of a power practice you can take away and put into your toolkit. Places where we can connect. You can find me on Instagram at Katy Catalyst, Katy Murray on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you. And feel free to connect on the book. Feel free to let me know what resonates for you from that. And I'm here to cheer you on and support you. Thanks again, everybody.